edition of the Love Justice Podcast. My name is Tiara M. Tucker, and I am so excited to say hello to all of you listeners for the second episode of the Love Justice Podcast. So for those of you who may have tuned into the first episode, you would have heard from Mr. Mike Webb, representing the News Literacy Project. We had a great time talking about the News Literacy Project, which is a nonpartisan education nonprofit that's building a national movement to advance the practice of news literacy throughout American society, creating better informed, more engaged, and more empowered individuals, and ultimately a stronger democracy. So if you haven't already, make sure you check out that episode. And also, make sure you check out the Love Justice website, LoveJustice.com. That is your social justice hub for all things social justice. This is the place to go to help make the world even better, from news stories to blogs, ways to volunteer. And also, you can become a member at no cost to you, because together we are going to make a positive difference in the social justice space. So again, check out LoveJustice.com. So without further ado, I am so excited about today's episode of the Love Justice Podcast. So we said we're going to bring to you people that are making a big difference in the social justice space, from nonprofit organizations to community leaders to thought leaders, and also to nonprofit and social justice legends. So for today's guest, I'm really excited to bring up someone by the name of Miss Dione Sims. But before I bring her up, I want to talk a little bit high level about her organization, and then I'll bring her up to talk even more about it. So Unity Unlimited is a nonprofit organization whose main mission is providing educational activities and resources to people, young and old, to foster unity and harmony within the community, the city, the state, the nation, and the world, regardless of race, culture, or denomination. So help me, Love Justice Podcast community. Welcome to the Love Justice Podcast, Miss Dione Sims.
Hello, Tiara.
Hello, hello, hello. How are you doing?
Doing well today.
Great. Well, I'm so excited to have you here. As I think about our journey, we met a while back, and then we kind of been connecting in the community here and there. And I'll say a little bit more down the line about some of our connections. But can you introduce yourself to the listeners?
So I am Dione Sims. I am the founder and executive director of the Unity Unlimited nonprofit based in Fort Worth. Established in 2000, really to be an engine and an arm to bring people together, young people specifically at that time, to help bridge what was seeming to me to be a cultural divide, and which was, again, almost 20 years ago. Now you see it full blown, the division and the animosity and the vitriol that is just plaguing our country. But I could see it starting a long time, almost 25 years ago. And I wanted to do something about it, give young people a way to break down before it became cemented in their hearts, stereotypes and division that was just invading their mind space. And so we created a youth enrichment program in the fine arts and called Teen Choir Explosion that allowed Blacks and whites and Hispanics and children of all colors to come together for a week. And they worked together to hear different styles of music, things that I don't like that kind. I mean, you don't know what you don't like, but they had a great time. And we, gave scholarships, provided food. And we did that for 10 years. And then I had to take a sabbatical. But when we came back working with my grandmother with Juneteenth, because her feeling was that Juneteenth was a unifier, which is what Unity Unlimited does. And so we began working with her to produce the local Juneteenth events in Fort Worth. and which blossomed. And we brought Your Voice Unleashed back, which is Teen Choir Explosion on steroids, to give law enforcement an opportunity to speak to the young people so that authority figure isn't something they're scared of. And so we just work as much as we can to impact as many lives as we can.
Phenomenal. And so I have the website address up for those that are watching on YouTube, which is unityunlimited.org. So tell us a little bit more about the role that you play as a leader of this amazing organization.
So when you're the leader of a nonprofit, you first start with a personal vision, a personal hunger to do good. You want to impact lives. You want to make a difference, right? And so when your little one thought, takes a life of its own and it grows and people are like, yeah, I see what you mean. I'd like to help you, do that. Then you're like, well, it must not have been just me. And so you work and you collaborate and you bounce off of each other. How can you be more effective? How can you impact more lives than the little thing that you thought was just a small thing? It really does touch folks. And so you then grab a hold of a team, but someone still has to kind of lead and shepherd the vision so it doesn't go off the rails. All right. Because you can try and do too much, which then, makes you ineffective in what you were originally supposed to do. So it's really about keeping and knowing what to add, what to augment, and then maybe sometimes what not to do and what to say no to. And sometimes you don't like saying no because, you're there to help, but you can't do everything. And I think that's one of the things that, we for Unity Unlimited have had to really reckon with, because there are a lot of good ideas. But then what is the guide idea for us? And again, staying true to the vision and the mission that was given, to the organization. So my goal is to, help us stay on the track of bringing people together, exposing them to differences, and then allowing that bridge to be a sounding board for unity and cohesiveness so that we can begin to heal America, heal the heart and the soul of the country that's, gotten kind of sick here lately. So it's one of those things, but there's just so much that needs to be done, so much you want to do, so many people you want to help. But I think that's where partnerships come in. So I can't be it all, but I know someone who does do that. So instead of me trying to do that for this constituency, let me put you in touch with somebody that does. So we become collections and we become collaborators and connections to other nonprofits that are working just as hard in that field. So I don't have to try and reinvent the wheel or start something new. I just hook up with somebody like Tiara who knows somebody else in this space and who knows, and that way we get more done. We can do more together than thinking we can do it all by ourselves.
Wow. Very, very true. And thank you for sharing your role. And as a fellow nonprofit leader myself, I know that, to whom much is given, much is due, but I definitely love what you're doing. I love your mission, and I truly know that you are doing the good work. So about how big is your team? When you think about volunteers, I'm sure it could change and fluctuate, but.
There's a core of about 20 that work with us for Juneteenth, because we have different events. We have a month-long celebration, not just a day. But aside from the core community leaders that help us do Juneteenth, we do things year-round. So that team then becomes about 6 people that are with us year-round that help us from the marketing, from fundraising, from Opal's Farm, which is a major component of some of the things that we do. And then just the educational component with Dr. Opal and traveling and making sure that she's taken care of. So I have a core team of about 5 to 6 that work with us year round. But when it comes time for Juneteenth, we will grow to about 100 people to help us deliver for 1 month, just head on. But it leads up, to that. So in all, we've got about 100 folks that work with us, and we really do appreciate the time, their talent, and their treasure, because they're giving out of their substance and out of who they are to be a part of your nonprofit and your vision. So it's a team. It does take a village.
That's good. And I did have the pleasure of volunteering at this year's Juneteenth event in Fort Worth. So not only did I walk, but I went to the Voice Unleashed event day one. And I'm just going to tell you, not all volunteers are created equal, because I was helping out in like the choir. And when I listened back, I wasn't the best singer. So I'm just saying,
but you were willing, and that's all that matters. Is when folks are willing to do. So it takes a lot of good people, wanting to help the various things that we do, because Juneteenth isn't just a festival for us. And so we've got Empowering You, which is our educational component for Juneteenth, which allows us to get resources and information to the community, because when the enslaved were freed, they had to make decisions very quickly about their life with a very little information. And so this is such an information-rich time in history that we feel that we can't just make happenstance decisions about our life. So Empowering You is one of those events. And then, of course, there's Your Voice Unleashed that you talked about. But there's a breakfast of prayer that we start the month with. And there is the Miss Juneteenth pageant that is a scholarship pageant and encourages and helps young ladies to enhance their knowledge of not only about Juneteenth, but about themselves. And then, of course, there's Opal's Walk. All right. Opal's Walk for Freedom, which, went all across the country. We had 6 or 8 cities that walk with us in various places in different time zones at the same time with Miss Opal in the morning. And then, of course, we ended that day with the festival in Panther Island. So we do a lot, and we celebrate freedom not only from the 19th of June to the 4th of July, but from the 1st of June to the 4th of July. And because there's so much, and you can't cram it all in one day, because it all matters in getting people to see that it took all of a lot of people, the Quakers, the abolitionists, both black and white, the Mexicans down in the Southern Underground Railroad to champion for freedom. And that's what Juneteenth celebrates. And that's what Unity Unlimited wants to make sure we as a nation can celebrate what Juneteenth means, the freedom that it means for people. And so we, along with a great team, like you said, it takes a team, work really hard on our summer events. And then in the winter, of course, we give scholarships, and we have our Secret Santa program. And we'll have our art competition, because what we don't want is for people to think that Juneteenth is just a summer initiative. It's not. Freedom is 365. I mean, it's every day you live and breathe. So we've got to elevate Juneteenth out of being just about the history of it, but its relevance today and how it shapes our future. And so we work really hard to bring it to the back half of the year. And one of those things is our Secret Santa program, as well as our honors banquet in the fall, and giving scholarships year round.
Awesome. Well, you all are doing incredible work in the social justice space, and thank you for your leadership and for your amazing team that I know will continue to grow. So do you mind sharing with everyone, who is Miss Opal Lee?
So I like to say that I am the granddaughter of the Grandmother of Juneteenth, because my grandmother, Opal Lee, has worked for 45 years to make sure Fort Worth celebrated Juneteenth. And 20 years, the last 20 years of it, has been for a national Juneteenth observance, because when she got turned on to the fact that Juneteenth wasn't just a Texas thing, that it celebrated freedom all across the country, she got on board and started helping Dr. Ronald Myers push that message for why we needed a national holiday to celebrate the ending of slavery. And so Juneteenth not only became a Texas holiday, now it's a national holiday, due, I would say, not in small part to a campaign that she brought for the awareness starting, in 2016 for it to be a holiday. Now, they have been working. She's part of an organization that's been working since 99, 97 to bring the thought consciousness out of Texas to the nation. And so with that, but she had the idea, the gall, the unmitigated gall, right, to want to bring awareness to what was taking too long for her, for Juneteenth to be made a national holiday. And so she started a walking campaign. And then we started a online petition that, got at 1.6 million signatures on it. But her thing was, folks have got to know why, not just for another day off, but to celebrate the freedom that Juneteenth represents. And so I, came on board now. She's been doing it for over 40 years, right? So 20 of that was, in my time, not a problem. But I wasn't going to be out there in the hot sun. So I did stuff in the back. Because I'm a computer person, graphics and that kind of thing. I worked on her souvenir books and that kind of stuff. Yeah. But in 2014, I was at the park, one of the rare times that I was actually in the hot summer sun at the park. And I saw her finish this 2.75 parade that she led. Now, she was 86. She led this 2.75 mile parade route. And I saw her leave the parade and run to the stage to open up, and welcome people to the park.
Wow.
And I said, I am such a bad granddaughter. I am bad. I said, she's 86. She's working too hard. She just needs to, get on the social, come into the new millennium, get a social, get a website. And that's how she's just working too hard to do this. And I asked if we could bring Juneteenth under Unity Unlimited, because we believe the same things, and bringing people together and talking about the freedom that it really represents. And so she agreed. And so we brought Juneteenth under Unity Unlimited. And we started, but my mistake was in thinking, this little young bug bringing technology to it was going to make it easy. It is not easy. Doing social change, doing social impacting. It's not an easy thing. So it doesn't matter how much technology you have. People are still people, and you still have to reach people one person at a time if you're going to change their hearts. And so we together have been working, together to do just that. And so I'm very proud of my grandmother, who's now 95. All right. So we're almost at 10 years working together for what, is for her a lifelong passion. So.
Incredible. And you are an amazing granddaughter, by the way. And we thank you for allowing your grandmother to be the rest of the world's grandmother, because I don't know if I could have shared my grandmother with the world, but you are sharing your grandmother with the world, and we thank you. So I'm just curious, for the sake of the Love Justice Podcast, can you tell us, like right now at this moment, what do you think Miss Opal Lee, the grandmother of Juneteenth, is doing? Like right now at this very second, what do you think she's doing?
Well, if I didn't know what she was doing, I would tell you, just like I didn't know yesterday when we tried to talk to her, she was out delivering boxes. So you really can't, nail her down, because she's always helping somebody. But right now she's probably on the phone trying to find somebody a place to stay. If I know her, or food, something to eat, or, getting her lights cut on or something. So at this very moment, I couldn't nail her down.
Wow. Well, so because we are so excited about this Love Justice Podcast and bringing our listeners amazing people in the social justice space, we kind of worked a little magic, and we have a very special guest today. So help us welcome to the Love Justice Podcast, Miss Opal Lee, the grandmother of Juneteenth. If you're listening in, if you're watching on YouTube, give us a virtual round of applause for the grandmother of Juneteenth.
Hello, young people. And you're all young people if you're not 95. I'm just delighted that you want to listen to an old lady. And so I don't know where to begin. Tell me what you want to hear.
Wow. Well, first of all, thank you for being here. Thank you for letting us hear your voice, because you are our shero. You are a legend, especially in the social justice world. So I want to hear from you. Tell all of our listeners, who is Miss Opal Lee?
Well, she's actually a little old lady in tennis shoes, getting in everybody else's business and having a good time doing it.
I love that.
So I guess I'll tell you that I was born close to the Louisiana border, Shreveport. I was born in Marshall back in 1926. And I had the best childhood. Oh, I had a couple of brothers, tomboyish. Oh, I could climb a tree or shoot marbles or any of that kind of stuff. I remember climbing a cherry tree and eating so many cherries that I fell out the tree. But hey, didn't break nothing.
I love it.
And I'm going to tell this. I have a brother who said I was a good ball player. I would have made a really good ball, except I learned what boys were. So here I am. From Marshall, my parents moved to Fort Worth, and things changed. In Marshall, we'd go to the fairground for Juneteenth, and it was fabulous. It was Christmas and your birthday, and everything all rolled into one. I tell you, there was music and food. There were speeches and food, and there were games and food and food and food and food. When we got to Fort Worth, not so much. People sort of celebrated with their family or friends. But I met Mrs. Lenora Rolla, tall, straight, 90s, didn't wear glasses. The city of Fort Worth had asked her to gather the materials written of the contributions that Blacks had made to Fort Worth for their 175th birthday. She could find absolutely nothing written. And so she started the Tarrant County Black Historical and Genealogical Society. I was one of its members. Juneteenth was one of its programs. And I remember a Juneteenth in Little Sycamore Park. The papers said there were 30,000 people in that little park in a 3-day period. 10,000 people a day.
Wow.
Oh, did we have fun? The Historical Society took exhibits to the park. Don't think anybody paid much attention to them. But when it was time for the park to close, all they did was to pull a plug, and 10 o'clock, we all knew to go home. But this time, when they pulled the plug, I got on a flatbed truck and stuck that plug back in, and we partied till dawn. I also met Dr. Ronald Myers. He was a medical doctor, he was a minister, and a jazz musician, all rolled into one. And Doc's responsible for some 42, 43 of the states having some kind of observance for Juneteenth. Oh, I guess Doc's looking down saying, it's about time you got it done. But he was adamant about Juneteenth being a national holiday. And I sort of think maybe some of him rubbed off on me. I don't know. Because I got to thinking when I was about 89, I had 4 grown children. I had gone to colleges and universities. I had taught school. I taught 3rd grade children who were 8 years old so long I was beginning to act like them. So they gave me another position. I ended up being the visiting teacher, keep the kids in school, buy them some shoes, some clothes, see that the lights were turned. So, and then we had formed a food bank that people needed. We have a farm, but I still felt like surely I should do something else. And so I started walking from Fort Worth, Texas to Washington, D.C., 1,400 miles. I just felt like if a little old lady in tennis shoes was walking to D.C. from Fort Worth, somebody would take notice. And they did. I was supposed to have an RV, but that person decided what I was doing was too political, so they kept their RV. Well, my team says you'll only go where you are invited and where they have Juneteenth observances or festivals. I was invited all over the United States. Shreveport, Texarkana, Little Rock, Fort Smith, Denver, Colorado Springs, St. Louis, Chicago, Atlanta, the Carolinas. All over these United States. And so, if I left Fort Worth, September 2016, I actually got to Washington January 2017. And we had asked President Obama to walk with us from the Frederick Douglass House to the Capitol, but he was in Chicago.
Oh,
I didn't get what I wanted. Oh, but do you know what?
What happened?
We started an online petition and we got 1 million plus 500,000, 600,000 signatures. We took them to Congress and we were prepared to take that many more when we got a call to go to the White House. And the president was signing this law into what would become a national law, a federal law. I tell you, I don't know how I felt. I was elated. I was humbled. I wanted to do a holy dance, but the children say when I do that, I'm twerking. So President Biden gave me one of the pens he signed. He even gave me a check for $6.19 because we are going to have the National Juneteenth Museum in Fort Worth, Texas, and we're going to use that when we put our $70 million ask. Everybody can give us $6.19 and $60.19 or $600.19 because it's going to be the most fabulous museum in this town. Well, I don't know where to stop and tell you that we're waiting for you young folk to come and help us make this a reality.
Yeah, wow. First of all, beautiful. And I want to hear, all of the listeners out here on the Love Justice Podcast want to hear, you know, you are the grandmother of Juneteenth. You are an icon in the social justice space. What can other people do to help move social justice forward?
Well, I'm telling every young person I know to make yourself a committee of one. We know people who aren't on the same page we are on. So change their minds. And their minds can be changed. It's not going to happen in a day. You're going to have to work at it. But if people can be taught to hate, they can be taught to love. And we can turn this country around. And I'd like to see it happen in my lifetime.
Beautiful. And wow, when you speak, I know everybody out there listening just wants to pause, listen, and take action. So the cool thing about today's podcast is that not only do we have Miss Opal Lee, the grandmother of Juneteenth, but we also have your granddaughter, Dione Sims. So Dione, I know you get to enjoy your grandmother every day. How does it make you feel to hear her talk to everybody about the great things that she's doing?
Well, I think that it's a matter of pride, and I have to remember that everybody hasn't heard the story. So whereas I can probably say the story in my sleep, it's her own personal story, right? And there's so much inspiration in the things that she has overcome. She didn't tell about how her family, again, was celebrating Juneteenth here in Fort Worth. And on the 19th of June, they're headed home. And there's a mob that's, at her house. They had just moved into this neighborhood 4 days before. New house. And to know that, a mob, the paper said, it was in the Associated Press, that a mob of 500, that the police could not, contain the mob that destroyed their house on the 19th of June, when we're supposed to be celebrating freedom. But this is 1939. So we have to look at the time in the context. And they had bought a home in a predominantly in a white neighborhood. And so they didn't want them there. And so, but you seeing that at 12 years old could put a seed of bitterness in your heart. It didn't do that for my grandmother. So I'm very inspired by her, because all she continued to do was always good, always helping someone and making sure that people had decent housing, had a place to stay, and that they could have their needs met, and worked, for that as she got older. But it really could have put her on a different trajectory to have something like that happen to experience something like that at 12 years old. All right. That preteen, preteens is a hard time anyway. So when you see what, she went through, and the family, my great grandmother, who was the best cook yet. Matter of fact, my aunt, her daughter has a food truck that's called Miss Maddie's Diner in humble, recognition of the legacy, again, that we have. And so when you see that, I think that our family is blessed, for one, to have someone still at 95, still sharp, sound of mind, still has many projects, baking, in that head that she wants to get done, wants to see accomplished, but not to her benefit, but always benefiting somebody else and making sure that everybody else has, an equal opportunity, an equal chance to be that person that God created them. So, when I look at her, I still get amazed, that, she still has so much more to offer. And I think to me, she's the poster child for not giving up and saying that age is just a number. You are as old as you think you are. As a man thinks in his heart, so is he. So she doesn't see her. Now, her body might tell her, you look, girl, okay, look, you're a little old for that, so she ain't jumping out of, parachutes and, parasailing and nothing like that. But she's making an impact where she is. And she's not, just sitting back and, waiting, to die and go on. She's got too much to see happen.
That's good. And I just want to ask, Miss Opal Lee, I know the museum is in the works and it's going to be phenomenal. What else do you want to see happen in your lifetime?
I thought you'd never ask. I've been nominated for this Nobel Peace Prize, and it has money that goes with it. And I've got a list. Have you ever seen one of those Santa Claus lists that's long as all get out?
Just rows and rows?
Yeah. Well, I've got one of those. But at the top of that list is my going to Uganda to take a mother who has 44 children. She birthed them all by the same husband. Oh, well, I'm going over there and take some containers or find them over there and make them into decent housing for she and her remaining 38 children. That's one of my goals. Now, I got plenty of goals, and I can spend every dime of that money if I win. Mind you, if I don't win, I'm going to call on all you young people, every one of you, to help me get those containers over to Uganda and to that mother and those 38 children.
Tiara, another one of the things that Miss Opal kind of mentioned, the farm. The farm is an outbirth from her being chairman. She's now chairman emeritus of the food bank that's in her neighborhood. And she asked people that were standing in line, getting food, kind of why they, needed the help of the food bank. And, a lot of it was, not enough, can't have a job. I've been in the system. I've been incarcerated. Nobody wants to give me a job. And she asked them, would you farm? And I'm like, yeah, that's what we did, And so she said, well, if I got a farm, would you farm? And so that sent her on the journey of trying to get an urban farm established in Fort Worth, and she tried several different ways. And the one that stuck was working with the Tarrant Regional Water District, who gave us a lease for 13 acres of land along the Trinity River. And so we started Opal's Farm. Of course, she didn't want to be named after her, but what better, name to give it? And we're building a program. We cut the ribbon on February 2019. And we have a phenomenal farm manager. His name is Gregory Joel, and help from TCU, help from Zuma Kubota. They helped us to have a harvest opening in February by June. So we had fresh produce and everything. And so we have now had 3 full terms at the farm, and we give back to the food bank. We do farmers market. We do WIC programs. But one of the goals of it was to build a program for those who were previously incarcerated to get training and to work a farm and have a living wage. And I'm very proud that Charleston State University is coming on board to help us with a degree in horticulture, agriculture, that, one of the things that they have, such that we can let the people's time served not be time wasted, and do like we do with nursing. Nursing, if your life experience counts towards credits in a degree plan at certain colleges. And so if you are a CNA or an LVN, you can be an RN based on your life experience, and then, of course, completing the courses. So we want to do that, offer that program for the previously incarcerated, so that, while they're maybe still in the system, they have that kind of dual credit thing that you have with colleges and high school, and they're working towards having a degree and working an actual farm, so that it's more than just putting seeds in the ground. You're learning horticulture, you're learning how soil sampling, and you're learning about irrigation. And so there's a whole science to farming and that degree. So we're wanting them to, again, you're building into the human capital, that social space that gives them a sense of worth, a sense of self-worth, by having a degree and having that life experience then turned into a job. So we're really proud of that, and, working, and we're building that program with the farm. But again, there's so much inside of her to do and to help. And I'm just grateful, to be a part.
That's beautiful.
Let me tell you something. Since you've been talking, near my house and near that farm is a solid block that's vacant. And I visualize that as housing for these young people who are working this program. They need a place to stay. And I need a place to be able to put my hands on them to see that they do what they said they were going to do. I ask. They tell me that it's going to cost $1 million. Well, what's $1 million when you want to do something good? Somebody's going to step up to the plate and help us get that land for that housing for those young people who are working to become first-class citizens.
I love it. And that is what social justice is all about. I love it. So I know we're approaching the end of this podcast, and I don't want to go, but I want to ask, I have your website up, unityunlimited.org. So is that where people go to follow you, to learn more? Any other places where you would want for people to go to learn more about all of these great efforts that you just mentioned?
So she's got a book, and it's our Juneteenth children's book, Juneteenth, a children's story. And so they can get a copy of her book. Of course, Unity has a link to it. But if they go to therealopallee.com, they can purchase her book. They can follow her, and we'll have the Nobel Peace Prize nomination announcement there on her website. But that's where they can go and find all things Opal Lee. And then as we get around time to for Juneteenth, they can go to JuneteenthFTW.com to get the whole lay of what we're doing for the summer and past that. So UnityUnlimited.org will take them to every space. But if they want to do specifically therealopallee.com and JuneteenthFTW.com.
Wonderful. And I just popped in a picture for those of you watching on YouTube. That was a picture when I first met Miss Opal Lee, as well as Dione, at an event in Fort Worth last year. And that's when I got a copy of the book, Juneteenth, which does a great job of telling the story. So as we get ready to conclude, I just want to say thank you on behalf of the Love Justice team and LoveJustice.com. So not only did I get to meet you all last year and I got my book, I also had the opportunity to honor Miss Opal Lee and meet your other granddaughter, Promise, at a brunch that I hosted for my nonprofit, Speak That Movement. I also got to see you all and witness Miss Opal Lee walking when so many people were tired and hot and wanted to sit down and get in a car. I witnessed you walk until the end. Okay, first of all, you twerking, you're about to win a Nobel Peace Prize. What advice can you give to us young people to be like you when we get to be your age?
I'm telling you, youngsters, that it's your responsibility to get us to the finish line. I'm wanting you to know that Dr. King, Rosa Parks, Malcolm X, Sojourner Truth, all those people pushed us forward. But you've got to get us over the finish line that says we are first-class citizens, and that all these disparities we have that need to be attended to are attended to. We've got to do more work in our education system so people don't think that, oh, you can't talk about what happened. History can't be erased. So we've got to make a decision to talk about it, learn about it, and be sure it doesn't happen again. And there is we've got to do something about joblessness and homelessness and climate change and healthcare. All these are our responsibility. You can't wait for somebody else to do it. It's our responsibility. And I hope the young people hear what I'm saying and take it and run with it and be sure that we get it done.
Wow. And on that note, we drop the mic because Miss Opal Lee, the grandmother of Juneteenth, has just spoken. And I have LoveJustice.com out there because some of these exact causes that she just mentioned, those are some of the things that we're focusing on at LoveJustice.com, which is why we're so happy to be able to interview and talk to those of you representing Unity Unlimited and all of the other amazing nonprofit organizations throughout the United States of America and beyond. You just heard from the grandmother herself. We have to make it to the finish line and keep going, because we're not only doing it for future generations, but we're doing it to show our love for the generations that have went on before us. We thank you, Miss Opal. We thank you, Dione. Any closing words as we wrap out that you want to share with the audience?
So the only thing is for us not to just think about ourselves, and that we truly are our brother's keeper. And just because you and your four have what you need, make sure you give. Make sure you get young people into volunteering and giving of themselves, because they're beginning to be a really selfish society. And what's in it for me? But they really need to be thinking about what they can do for others.
Nicely put. And that's how we move this movement forward. And Miss Opal Lee, I'm going to allow you to have the last. You gave us so much. I just want to keep hearing more. The last words of the podcast will come from you.
I just want young people to know that it's their ball game. I want them to know that there are old people like myself, lots of younger old people, but you ought to be listening to them. You could ask them things that you need to know, and they can tell you. But don't wait for them to call you in, because they're not going to do it. Ask the older people, and they in turn will tell you what needs to be done, and do it. We're all in this together. And I want you to be sure that you do your part.
There we go. On that note, thank you for tuning in to another edition of the Love Justice Podcast featuring Miss Opal Lee and Dione Sims. We hope that you'll continue to tune in wherever you listen to podcasts, as well as on the Love Justice Podcast on YouTube, and visit LoveJustice.com for more news, information, and ways that you can get involved and volunteer and have a community of other folks who are dedicated, just like you, to making a difference in the social justice world. Tune in next time, and thank you so much. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you for having us. Thank you.
Thank you.